Let me start this the way most people in crypto are too afraid to even think about, let alone talk about on camera. For years, this community has obsessed over XRP utility, CBDCs, institutional adoption, ETFs, flip the switch theories, liquidity hub, banking corridors, everything. But almost nobody discusses the uncomfortable side of all that progress, the part that hits you directly. Not the charts, not the narratives, not the hype. I'm talking about what happens when XRP actually becomes what we always said it would become, a core piece of global financial infrastructure, because when that moment arrives, the game changes. Not for Ripple, not for banks, not for governments, but for you. And here on XRP Daily Brief, we talk about the side of this industry that actually matters to holders who plan to survive the next decade. Everyone loves their cold wallets. Everyone loves repeating, not your keys, not your crypto. But let's be brutally honest. The moment XRP transitions from a speculative digital asset into a real liquidity instrument used by banks across borders, your relationship with your wallet stops being a personal preference and becomes a point of government interest. This is not fear-mongering. This is maturity. Every early adopter eventually reaches the moment where their asset stops being underground and becomes part of the system. And once it's part of the system, governments do what they've always done. They regulate the holder. So here's the question nobody wants to face. What happens the day your government decides that your XRP isn't just a token, but a taxable, traceable, reportable financial instrument that you're legally responsible for? What happens when regulators decide that movements between your own wallets count as taxable events or income or suspicious activity if they aren't tied to a verified identity? Because that's exactly where this is going. And it's happening much faster than most XRP holders realize. Picture this scenario. Mass adoption finally hits. Banks start using the XRP Ledger on a global scale. And suddenly your government issues a directive. Full disclosure of every crypto wallet you own. And you tell yourself, well, my wallet is anonymous. No, it's not. Every transaction you've ever made is permanently on-chain. The only missing link was tying it to you. And governments around the world are building the tools to close that gap. Blockchain was designed to be transparent. The only true anonymity in financial history was physical cash. And cash is being erased globally. Governments don't need your seed phrase. They don't need to hack your hardware wallet. They don't need to seize anything. They just require reporting. They demand disclosure. They classify your activity however they want. Once everything is tied to your digital identity, the privacy you thought you had collapses instantly. And that's where Europe, the G20, the OECD, and the IMF are pushing right now. Self-custody protects assets. It does nothing to protect the owner. That's the part most crypto holders are still asleep on. Governments don't need to confiscate your XRP. They can freeze your off-ramps. They can impose retroactive taxes. They can classify wallet-to-wallet movements as income. They can pressure exchanges and DeFi platforms to hand over every detail of your history. AC8 in Europe already mandates extreme reporting. Spain taxes crypto up to 47%. Germany wants to remove long-term exemptions. Italy is at 26%. Israel treats most crypto as income. Canada increased capital gains. The US is actively building wallet-to-identity mapping. This is not speculation. This is active legislation. And most XRP holders have no protection at all. Their coins are safe. They are not. People brag about cold wallets, like that solves everything. It doesn't. A cold wallet secures your coins from hackers. It does nothing to shield you from governments. And if XRP becomes global liquidity infrastructure, classification becomes far more important than ownership. If your holdings are considered unreported, you're in trouble, even if you've done nothing wrong. Here's something wealthy people understand that retail investors don't. They never keep significant assets in their personal name. They use structures, companies, foundations, trusts, because those create legal distance between the owner and the asset. That's why they survive high-tax environments. That's why they stay protected during regulatory shifts. That's why they sleep peacefully while retail panics. If XRP reaches the level of utility we expect, this shift becomes unavoidable. Now let's go deeper into the part nobody is prepared for. If you think governments will let billions or trillions of dollars sit in anonymous cold wallets while a new global financial system goes live, you're dreaming. They're already building frameworks to ensure assets like XRP are locked into taxation, compliance, and identity systems. People still believe decentralization equals immunity. It doesn't. Decentralization protects the ledger, not the holder. Governments don't need to compromise the network. They just need to classify you. And most crypto holders are incredibly easy targets because they've never prepared legally. Let's get brutally real. Once XRP becomes fully integrated into cross-border settlement, you become something you're not ready for, a liquidity provider. You're no longer just a guy holding a token. You're holding a digital asset capable of moving value across borders. That puts you in a different category, one that governments track, monitor, and regulate aggressively. And this is where retail investors ruin their future, not because they didn't buy enough XRP, but because they didn't prepare for the regulatory shift that comes after adoption. Look around the world. Every major economic bloc is tightening digital asset rules at the same time. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Europe rolled out AC8, forcing full disclosure of every wallet and every transaction. Spain, 47% taxation. Italy, 26%. Germany, removing tax exemptions. UK, AML proof of funds. Canada, increased capital gains. Israel, taxes almost everything as income. The G20, global identity mapping for crypto wallets. People say, I'll just stay on cold storage. Cold storage protects the coins, not the person. A hardware wallet doesn't override tax law. Your keys don't exempt you from reporting. DeFi doesn't give you immunity. The danger isn't losing your XRP. The danger is losing control because you never structured yourself legally. Governments don't need to confiscate your XRP. They can just freeze your off-ramps, or classify your wallet as unreported, or demand documentation you don't have, or block your transfers until you prove origin. This is how modern financial systems enforce control, through bureaucracy. And wealthy investors, they play a different game entirely. They don't hold millions in their personal name. They don't off-ramp as individuals. They don't expose themselves directly. They use companies, foundations, trusts, structures that legally separate the owner from the asset. A wallet protects your keys. A structure protects your wealth. When XRP becomes a global settlement rail, the entity holding the asset needs to be legally recognized, tax compliant, and AML compliant. Otherwise, every bank interaction becomes a nightmare. Real-world example, try off-ramping $500,000 in XRP from a personal wallet today. Most banks freeze it immediately, not because it's illegal, but because they can't verify origin. This is why wallet certifications exist. Attorney-issued documents verifying. The wallet belongs to you. The funds were acquired legitimately. The activity is compliant. Wealthy investors already do this. Retail investors don't. Crypto is no longer just an investment, it's becoming infrastructure. And once that shift finishes, holding everything in your own name will look reckless. You're not preparing for a moonshot. You're preparing for regulation. And the biggest mistake in crypto right now is believing a cold wallet protects you. It protects the coins, not the owner. Regulation is already here. It's expanding every month. And if your XRP sits in your personal name, tied to your personal identity, you're the easiest target in the world. Governments don't need to seize your crypto. They'll make it unusable unless you comply. A wallet protects your access. A structure protects your future. And when XRP becomes a global liquidity rail, the people without a structure will feel the squeeze first. You have a limited window to prepare, not because of price, but because of legislation. So ask yourself honestly, are you preparing like a retail trader or like someone planning to survive the next financial system? This content is for educational purposes only and is not financial, tax, or legal advice. Always do your own research and consult qualified professionals before making investment or structural decisions.